This is a celebration to honor the life of Jessie Blowers Galloway Tibbitts on her 101st birthday. During her 101 years, she has been loving wife and mother to some of us. She has been grandma to a few more. She has been Aunt Jessie to several, and just plain friend to many persons worldwide. Jessie's illustrious life began March 23, 1896, the second of two daughters born to Harry and Bertha Hulbert Blowers. The Blowers family farm was located in West Portland, New York, a small village near Westfield in northern Chautauqua County. The Lake Erie climate was conducive to fruit and berry growth, and the Blowers farm was no exception. Harry Blowers was widely known as a successful nurseryman. He developed the noted Blowers blackberry sold throughout New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio at the turn of the century. Preschool days were carefree and fun, with Polly the doll and plenty of Blowers cousins as playmates nearby. And of course there was Sister Miriam, 3 years Jessie's senior, but a constant and loving companion. Growing up on the farm was good. Strong Christian parents and a loving family molded Jessie's character as we know it today. There was always time off from berry picking and household chores to play with Betsy the cat. And the sisters had plenty of new bikes to ride around the farm. In addition to growing berries, Harry owned and operated a successful bicycle dealership in Westfield on the site of today's Eason Hall. A large part of Jessie's young life was the West Portland Baptist Church, where she was baptized at age 12. The church, built in 1842, remains in active use today. Suddenly, Jessie has become a lovely young lady, here with a sober yet dreamy countenance. As a high school student at Westfield Academy, with a budding musical talent, perhaps she was dreaming of life as a concert pianist. Or more likely, she was dreaming about that handsome young man she had met while visiting a friend at Point Chautauqua. His name was Laverne Galloway from nearby DeWittville, and he was out to capture a fair maiden's heart. Vern soon became a regular visitor at the Blowers farm. Young love blossomed as Jessie was graduated from high school in 1915, but fulfilled love was to be put in limbo because of events far beyond West Portland. America entered its First World War, and so did thousands of young men, including Vern. The year was 1916. While waiting for her young man to return and to continue her musical training, Jessie entered Fredonia State Normal and Training School. After majoring in musical composition and harmony, Jessie was graduated in 1917. Her love of music was to sustain her and please others throughout her long life. 1918 was a happy year for Jessie, as evident from this photo. Vern had returned from the Army and was sporting a fancy car on his visits to West Portland. Although Jessie looks at ease behind the wheel, she never learned to drive. And there were picnics and get-togethers with the Thomas and Birch cousins from Corey and Erie. This was probably Rowan Birch's Studebaker. It wasn't long before love conquered all, and Vern and Jessie sent out wedding announcements. And in August 1919, they made a handsome bride and groom. He was 26, she was 23. After a Lake Erie honeymoon by boat to Cleveland and Detroit, the newlyweds settled into their first home, the Cadwell House at Point Chautauqua. In July 1921, Vern and Jessie were blessed with daughter Harriet's birth. She was a beautiful and happy baby. This is the happy family with Harriet at 16 months of age. Their happiness turned to grief 1 month later, when she suddenly died of spinal meningitis. At that time, little was known about the diagnosis and treatment of the disease. The remaining 20s was a time of recovery and family rebuilding. Within 6 years, 3 sons helped to fill the void caused by Harriet's death. Mert in 1923, Harrison or Harry in 1925, and Dick in 1929. The family then lived in DeWittville. There were plenty of Galloways and Crandalls around, and more were being produced on a regular basis. Here are 4 generations in 1926. With 19 Galloways living in DeWittville in 1929, it was not difficult to find a gathering such as this group of rowdies: Bruce, Ruth, Harry, and Dennis, with Mert guarding the rear. Florida trips were a treat in the early 30s. Here's the family catching the Boston Red Sox at Old Payne Park in Sarasota. Another group of cousins at a Lake Chautauqua picnic, this time with the Birch and Thomas sides of the family. Grandpa Bud and Grandma May with a glum-looking bunch of grandchildren. Naoma and Bruce are the only cheerful ones in the lot. DeWittville natives over 60 recognize this scene, faded but familiar faces of 1935-36. 7 Galloways account for 18% of this somber crowd. They're in every row except the second. Galloway picnics at the lake were always special occasions, with lots of good food, swimming, and family fun. The 7 remaining cousins in 1943, Uncle Harold's family had moved to Poughkeepsie, Mert was in the Army, and little Janet was added to the group. Jessie's primary role during the 30s and 40s was keeping 3 growing boys in line. However, she continued her devotion to music by giving piano lessons and serving as pianist at the old DeWittville church. Jessie saw both Mert and Harry serve in World War II and was thankful to have them return unharmed. Another family reunion, this time with cousins Bob and Shirley from Poughkeepsie. During the 40s, Jessie proudly provided organ music for numerous DeWittville weddings. In addition, she covered the events as a reporter for the Jamestown Post-Journal and Mayville Sentinel, as may be noted in this byline. The post-war 40s started a new generation of Galloways. Jessie's first grandchild, Linda, was Mert's pride and joy in 1948. The 50s began with Vern completing their new home, later to be known as the Chapman House. After 3 decades, Vern and Jessie were alone in the house, with Mert and Harry pursuing careers and Dick in the Air Force.
Blessed Son of God, my wonderful Redeemer, He bled and died.
With the boys gone, Jessie resumed her first love, that of composing music. She proudly had 3 hymns published, one of which, entitled Blessed Son of God, was played at a Chautauqua Amphitheater Sunday service. It is performed here by Patty Bloomstrand Clary and her husband Roger.
Why should I doubt thee, who gives me light divine? Why must I grieve thee when blessings all are mine? Let me seek pardon and live
1953, Harry presented Jessie with her first grandson, Bobby. Vern kept busy building houses and incorporated many of his progressive ideas into their newest residence, known to all of us as the Pink House. Dick returned from the Air Force, and he and Fay were married in the new DeWittville Church in 1955. Grandpa and Grandma showing off their latest granddaughter, Michelle, or Shelley, born to Dick and Fay in 1959. Vern was ill with cancer when this photo was taken and would die 16 months later. Jessie felt a terrible loss once again, and the early 60s were spent with family and friends trying to let time ease the pain. After a 4-year period of loneliness, Jessie met someone equally lonely, also because of a lost mate, Carl Tibbitts of Clearwater, Florida. Following a brief courtship, they were married in 1965. Here are the honeymooners in Nassau, a long way from West Portland and DeWittville. Jessie inherited a step-family with built-in grandchildren. Carl's son Alan Tibbitts, with wife Shirley and children Jeff and Kathy. And Carl's daughter Eleanor Tibbitts from California. Carl and Jessie enjoyed traveling, seen here visiting Thomas and Birch cousins in Leesburg, Florida. Dick and Fay gave Jessie her 4th grandchild, Allison, in 1966. Jessie gained another daughter-in-law in 1967 when Barry and Harry were wed. Finally, Jessie's 5th and last grandchild, Michael, was born to Mert and Mary Lou in 1968. In addition to music, Jessie enjoyed writing poetry about family and friends' experiences. Nearly 98 of her favorites were published as Jessie's Jingles. Here she gives us a sample.
Then there is one I wrote on writing poetry. I wrote this in 1940. A poet's pen may be inspired by children at their play, by a garden bright with luscious flowers, or a sunset at the close of day. Yes, a poem is a lovely thing, of thoughts and words so fair, and poets are the ones who make such combinations rare. But to put the right word in its place, I've tried with all my mind, and to have words flow right off the tongue, faster than pen can write, is something only a poet can do. It's a gift from heaven, that's why. Oh, I know I can't write poetry, but it's lots of fun to try.
Another trip to familiar DeWittville on peaceful Lake Chautauqua. The 70s ushered in another generation of Jessie's family, with Linda's son Ryan, the first of 6 great-grandchildren. Tragedy struck Jessie a 3rd time when Carl died in 1974. They had 9 brief but happy years together. Alone once again, Jessie traveled north to renew old friendships with DeWittville couples.